Did you hear that? Probably not. It was an introvert having a thought. I wonder why that thing came out. Well, an introvert can have a
That's the Introverted Army that we're hearing. It's a song by a Canadian musician named Trevor Strong. Who among you is a dog owner? Woo. And then who, by an enthusiastic round of applause, is the proud owner of the world's best dog? Woo! Yes. Okay. Yes. I thought there might be a few of you. I was hesitant to join your ranks. It was about 16 years that my husband needled away at me saying, I want a dog, I want a dog. Because all my life, I'd had cats, right? And we know about cats. They are introverts. Just like their human counterparts, they're relatively quiet, they're independent, they can spend lots of time on their own. They don't necessarily need to socialize, but they are good at it when they want to be. If you have just the right friends over, they will make themselves known. But of course, what I was hesitant about was the fact that I'd always perceived dogs as extroverted, very social creatures. You had to be outgoing if you were going to have a dog. It was about 2 years ago when finally I relented and said, okay, we can get a dog. And I saw Ginger at the Humane Society on a Friday morning. By Friday evening, we were walking through the doors, and you can imagine my surprise and my delight when we walked into the place where the dogs were staying. Every dog in there was yipping and barking and running around except for Ginger. Ginger was just sitting quietly in her cage, sitting there looking at us as if to say, where have you been? I've been waiting for you. Get me out of here. That was our first hint that maybe Ginger wasn't your typical extroverted dog. We got her home, and over time, we noticed that she did tend to kind of want to keep with us. She wasn't necessarily comfortable around the other dogs. She could do it, but it wasn't her favorite thing. And I noticed this even when we would take her to the dog park. She didn't quite know how to play with the other dogs, and she was 2 years old, and she's a lab mix of some kind. And so what happened was, we were able to keep her with us most of the time. We brought her to work with us most days, and she seemed comfortable. She didn't tear up the house when she was alone. So we knew we were safe there. But finally, about 6 months into having her, we needed to do an overnight trip. And we had not tested out the doggy daycare options or boarding, so we had to get her assessed for her social skills. I was a little nervous about this. Any of you who have been through this, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking unless you know that your dog is social. And so I took Ginger back to the facility where we had gotten her trained. And I brought her in, and the trainers brought in a small dog named Chi. Now, Chi was supposed to be their social tester, I guess, not the most outgoing dog of the bunch, but very comfortable with other dogs. And I knew we were in trouble when Ginger would not leave my side. She just stayed around my ankles and didn't seem particularly interested in interacting with Chi. So the trainer said, well, Beth, maybe you ought to go wait out in your car. And it seems like Ginger's trying to protect you. So let's see what happens when you leave. So I left. And it was about 15 minutes later when Lee, the trainer, came out. I could tell by the look on her face I was not going to like the news. She said, I'm really sorry. Ginger, she's just got too much anxiety. She's not ready for doggy daycare. Can I get an oh, I know. It broke my heart. You would think that somebody had just told my kindergartner, I'm sorry, she's not ready for school yet. So Lee, the trainer, she said, why don't you, keep taking her to the dog park, give her a little bit of time, slowly introduce her to more socialization, and then we'll try again. It was a few months later that I tried another facility. This time she passed. We had done a little bit of socialization. And what was really funny to me is I had a hint that she was an introvert before this experience, but it was this that proved it to me. We had left her overnight, and you can see my play was emphatic. I kept to myself, but was polite to all of my friends here. I had to laugh. I said, okay, I truly have an introverted dog on my hands, and how perfect is that? So over the past few months, I've been watching Ginger, and I said, well, she's got something to teach me here, because everything she does, there's none of this in your head stuff. It's all instinctive. And when we talk about networking, we're often thinking about, what am I going to do once I get there? How am I going to talk to people? What about all that small talk and exchanging business cards and my handshake? And those things are all very important. But what I learned from Ginger was about how to be in those networking situations. And that's what I want to spend a few minutes sharing with you right now. So the first one that I learned from her is to ease into it. This is something that I learned from Lee, the trainer at the facility, when she said, slowly introduce her to other dogs. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs and business owners and professionals, we think we have to just jump in and network like crazy and just keep showing up. I think there's something to be said for saying, I'm just going to go to like smaller events for a while. Business Theater Live is a perfect kind of event because it's so structured and it's so intimate here in this setting. It's set up perfectly for us to be able to connect with each other. The ease into it also has to do with, if you're at a larger event, it's okay to stay on the edges for a little while. Just like they didn't give Ginger the most exuberant dog in the group and say, okay, here you go, play. We don't have to do the same thing either. We can seek out that friendly face, look for the person who has that calmer demeanor. And I've even heard some people say, look for the person who maybe looks as uncomfortable as you feel. Reach out, you be that friendly face to them. In this case, what I love about this picture is this is my husband, Andy, and we were on vacation in Michigan, and he has Ginger and Lacey. Lacey is his aunt's dog. And he's introducing them to each other. So to me, this demonstrates that power of having a person that knows other people and can connect them in a safe space. So Andy is the glue between those two. And sometimes we'll say, well, yes, go with a networking buddy. That's a really great way, but don't depend on them. Don't spend too much time with them. I say yes, and sometimes it's okay to lean into that person a little bit more, especially when you're in a new kind of situation. And often, the person that I choose as that networking buddy is somebody I want to get to know better anyway. It's a chance to spend some meaningful time with them. So if I feel like, I've only connected with them and maybe 2 other people, that's okay, because I've deepened some relationships. The second is to engage in calming behaviors. I love this. Ginger's yawns. When she's in a situation where she has a lot of anxiety, she will have some calming behaviors that she just instinctively does. Again, this, for us, helps to remind us to get out of our heads and drop down in our bodies and get ourselves centered so that we can be fully present with people. So for her, she will yawn, she will stretch, and often she'll moan with it. Who has a dog like, ugh, does that really satisfying moan. And sometimes I've noticed that the more anxious she is, the deeper and longer that moan is, or the higher the squeal when she yawns. So she vocalizes with it. And she'll even do, we've all seen it, I'm getting this on video, right? The head to tail shake, right? And these are all things that we can replicate. I wouldn't suggest doing it during the event, but before the event. When you're in your car, if you slip away to a hallway, you're in the bathroom stall, take a minute, just kind of shake it out a little bit. Roll your head around. Give yourself a big yawn. And, just kind of get yourself back into your body. I want you all to do me a favor for a moment. Stand up, right in your spots. I'm going to show you something that maybe you've heard about, but I invite you to put into practice. Ginger can't do this. This is totally about us. But this is about the power pose. Who's familiar with the power pose? All right, excellent. Well, then you might recognize this woman here. This is Dr. Amy Cuddy, and she's a social psychologist and researcher. And she has a massively popular TED Talk where she talks about the power pose. So if you stand, all of us, together with our feet about shoulder width apart, hands on the hips, shoulders back, chin up. In marching band, we used to call this give 'em L, right? Give 'em L, and just, take a couple of deep breaths. And it gives you this chance to just kind of get aligned and get centered with yourself. Doesn't it feel a little powerful? You either feel like whether, man or woman, Superman or Wonder Woman kind of pose. And Dr. Cuddy says that you do this for about 2 minutes, and it raises your testosterone levels, and it lowers your cortisol levels. So the testosterone is what gives you that sort of confidence and feeling of power, and the cortisol is your stress hormone. And so it's known to lower that, just for doing it for 2 minutes. And I would say even just doing it for 30, 40, 50 seconds is going to give you enough that you feel like, okay, I can do this. So please, be seated. Don't you all feel better after doing that? You just feel like a little bit of a sense of groundedness. Number 3, take a time out. When you're networking, it can become very overwhelming. It can become a very socially intense kind of situation. And you might be enjoying yourself, but it's okay to take a little bit of time out during the event. I love how Ginger is just sort of saying, okay, I'm done playing here. I think I'm going to hide. You can make that time, again, whether slipping away into the restroom or an empty room or a quiet hallway. You might be at a larger event for a longer period of time, and you have a chance to even step outside and walk around the block. Take a few deep breaths. Give yourself space and permission to step away from the action. Don't fall victim to FOMO. Who knows what FOMO is? FOMO? Fear of missing out. That's especially true when you're at a larger event. I've learned the value of this. I'm getting ready to go to the World Domination Summit. Who else is going? Anyone? Yay! Okay, World Dominators. And there's a lot going on, and it can be really intense because there's some 3,000 people there. Taking time outs is going to be critically important. And in those situations, that means actually going back to my hotel room and taking a nap. And I have to be okay with that. So when you notice any sort of anxiety creeping in, take that as a cue to step away from the action and take a time out. And then 4th is to retreat, to recharge. This is kind of my rallying cry for introverts, because we recharge through solitude and quiet and lower stimulation environments. It takes a lot of effort to go out and exert yourself. And you don't always get the energy back when you're there. So you have to be able to give yourself space to go away and retreat. Here, Ginger used to retreat to her den, now her bed. And when she's in this particular position, we call this closed for business. She does not want to be bothered. She does not want attention or affection. If she sees us coming, we get this, and she sort of turns her head. I invite all of us to think about, after we've exerted ourselves, particularly in networking or something social, allow yourself space to be closed for business. Give yourself that space to retreat. It might be tempting to squeeze in another, coffee date or another networking event or something else. Really think hard about, is that really going to serve you? How present are you going to be able to be for that next thing? I would rather give it my all in one and let that be the way I spend my time best. We have just a couple of minutes, and I wanted to put a pause in here to see any questions or just comments or reactions on anything that I've shared so far. I want to leave you with one last one, number 5. You as dog owners know how important treats are to your dogs. When they exert energy, they expect and enjoy being rewarded. I don't think that's any different for us. And with networking, especially as professionals, we think, well, it's something I'm expected to do. Why would I, give myself any extra kudos or pat on the back for it? I say do it anyway. We have to celebrate these things as we go. And sometimes creating a ritual or expecting some sort of reward afterwards helps to make you look forward to it a little bit more. It's a little bit more motivating. And I think we don't reward ourselves enough. We don't acknowledge and recognize that effort that we're putting out enough. So I encourage you to reward with treats. And since you're not a dog, it doesn't have to be food. It could be a nap. Could just be, jam into your favorite CD on the way home. Could, you get creative with what it is. But remember to recognize yourself. So next time you're going to an event, think WWGD. What would Ginger do? You would ease into it. Remember to have some calming behaviors that you have. Remember to give yourself some time outs. Retreat to recharge and reward yourself. Motivate yourself with treats. And then you will be a little bit more comfortable. Just as Ginger has gotten more comfortable with her canine counterparts, you will be able to go to these and have fun play dates and be a little bit more relaxed and playful. At the end of the aisle there, if you wouldn't mind passing that down, I wanted us to stay motivated with some treats. So grab one of these little candy packets, and there are 2 of these packets that have a sticker on them. And the lucky person that has that sticker, 2 folks, get a free 30-minute insight strategy session with me. We can talk about introverts, we can talk about networking, we can talk about basically anything you want. So who has those stickers? Okay, awesome, great. We should have 2 that have the stickers on them. Keep digging until you find one, if you because I would love for 2 people to be able to walk away with them. So if you get that sticker, please come see me after, and I will let you know how you can take part in that. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention, and remember, what would Ginger do?